Thank God Trump tried to extradite that woman from the Huawei company, because without doing that, a lot of Canadians would have never known about this company. We probably would have used them to set up our 5G technology. So him doing this is a godsend for us Canadians, and forced our government to now start to be somewhat antagonistic towards China. They have really no other choice because of what they're doing to our citizens. But without this going on, they would have set up the 5G, and we would have had, all of our information going to China, and they would have had a backdoor into our country. Like the other Five Eyes countries, like New Zealand, Britain, United States, Australia, all rejected, the Huawei company because they don't trust it. But for some reason, only Canada thought it was a good idea. But luckily, like I said, Trump did this, so this is forcing our government, which would have worked with China and sold us out if it wasn't for Trump, right? And now it's going to force us, possibly, hopefully, to stand more with America against China. But I still don't trust the Canadian government, especially under Trudeau, to do that, because Ralph Goodell is like, the Chinese came out and threatened us, and they're like, if you don't if you get rid of this deal, there's going to be repercussions. So he's like, on Thursday, this is a Thursday, Chinese ambassador to Canada, Liu Shay, warned that shutting China's largest private company out of next generation wireless networks would have consequences. So what consequences? They're threatening us. If the Canadian government does ban Huawei from participating in the 5G networks, I believe there will be repercussions. Public Safety Minister Ralph Goodell responded on Friday that pressure from China would not affect what Canada does. This is an important decision for Canada, and we'll make it based on what is right for our country, he said. So it's like just a weak fucking response, you can expect from the Canadian government. They're going to be very strong against what the Russians are doing to gay people. You're going to have Chrystia Freeland come out. You must release these gay people immediately. She said that just recently on Twitter. And, they'll come out, in Saudi Arabia, you must release these people immediately. And they're not even Canadian citizens, but we have Canadian citizens overseas detained by the Chinese, and you have Trudeau coming out. I disagree with this arbitrary detention of Canadians and this arbitrary decision to kill one Canadian. They sentenced that one guy to death, overturned his conviction of 15 years, and that's all we're going to say. Oh, well, and now we're going to look into things to see, to investigate. Hey, man, all the other countries already barred it and rejected it. Why do we need to investigate? It makes absolutely no fucking sense to do that. But it's just, I don't know. They're just trying to see if this thing gets resolved, I guess, and then they can go back to working with China. But I don't think that's going to be the case, and they're going to have to get increasingly antagonistic towards China, because they're going to keep putting the pressure on us. They're going to keep like detaining our civilians, and what are we going to do about it? You know what I mean? This is exposing how very little support we have on the world stage, and how much Canada is in dire need of allies like America, like all these other countries, to help stand up for us. Because Trudeau is way too big for his fucking britches. He thinks Canada is some fucking powerhouse or something. They can just throw their weight around. It's like, if you're going to do massive deals with countries that are worth billions and trillions or billions of dollars, and you are more reliant on them than they are reliant on you, then it's not exactly a good idea to come out and condemn them and all this other shit. So what you would rather do is not deal with China, with Saudi Arabia, with other countries to begin with. Trade with other countries, more democratically run nations. Maybe do more trade with India, even though you fuck that up. Do more trade with Taiwan. Like China is desperately trying to take over Taiwan. They're trying to make everybody recognized as a part of China already, which it is not. But why not help these people out? Work with America instead of working against them. But Trump is the evil big boogeyman, and communists are nice. The Chinese communists are great because the system that they have is something that Trudeau respects and would love to implement in Canada. Right? He already acts like he's a fucking dictator. Oh, I'm going to look at all your information and sell it to banks. I don't care if you disagree or not. I'm going to do all this shit. I'm going to, it does shit without our consent. I'm going to sign you up for the Migration Pact without your consent. Sign you up for the Paris Climate Agreement without your consent. Just signing us up for things in the future that are going to have many negative impacts on regular Canadians, but he doesn't give a shit. He is a dictator. He respects the Chinese, and you can just see how they're still not barely condemning them. It's so pathetic. It's so fucking pathetic that, if the Chinese were doing this to an American citizen, Trump would be like, up in arms, would make a fucking stink about it. But you barely hear anything coming out from people in Canada. Like, don't worry, we're working behind the scenes to this and that. But you can tell they're just so afraid to piss off China and stuff. And it's like, well, you wouldn't be so afraid if you completely alienated Trump and your best and greatest allies, right? We share a border with America. It's fucking stupid to completely attack them, to ruin our relations. We could have got these steel tariffs removed if Trudeau and stuff just actually played ball and wasn't so antagonistic. But we still have these fucking deficits on, and it's all because of the terrible negotiations from Chrystia Freeland, Trudeau, and all of our other negotiators that waited until the very last minute to even participate in the new NAFTA talks. Like, America and Mexico were talking for a whole month before that even took place. And now, even after China's doing all this to us, we're still kind of supporting them above America. And it's total insanity. I wish people open their eyes to this. And same with Telus, like I said, they came out, sent a memo to all their employers reaffirming, or the employees reaffirming how much they trust this company. So if you have Telus, it's probably a good idea to disconnect, because they obviously don't care about Canadians either. This is supposed to be a Canadian-based company. They don't care about what China is doing to our citizens, as long as they can get the Huawei products for a cheaper price, and they don't have to pay, some other 5G networks that are more secure, or in a European country. They'd rather give the money to these Chinese people so the Chinese government can get a backdoor to your information. So, right now they're like, oh, don't worry, we don't use, a lot of their technology and our sensitive things and whatnot. But with the 5G technology, that's going to be a lot harder to defend against. So it just baffles my mind that we're the only country of the Five Eyes, and a bunch of other Western countries all rejected them but us. So that speaks volumes about what what our politicians really think about us. Like the Huawei company they bought Hockey Night in Canada. Like, how ridiculous is that? A Chinese company owns the rights to Hockey Night in Canada. In a world, in a country like that, it's like, are we really surprised we're being fucking replaced? Are we really surprised when we're just selling our shit to like foreign fucking companies, like iconic things in Canada? You got like Tim Hortons, supposed to be some Canadian, now it's sold to like some American company or something. And I'm not necessarily against, certain companies and stuff coming in and buying stuff, but when it comes to stuff like Hockey Night in Canada, and choosing Chinese companies over Canadian companies, especially when we know the Chinese government is heavily influenced in these companies. We cannot trust them, or the companies we're dealing with are heavily subsidized by their government. So then, we're buying a cheaper product from them and excluding the Canadians in the Canadian market. So it's like, and that's not sustainable either. They can't subsidize their economy and have and just export cheaper goods forever. You know what I mean? It's not a long-term plan. It helps them short-term, but not long-term, and that's going to screw us over as well, because then all of our manufacturing is going to go over to China, and let's just say they have a collapse, then we're going to be tied in with it. That's why we need to be more independent and have more of our own industries and investing more in our own industries instead of allowing these hostile non-market economies come in and upend everything. It's crazy what we're letting the Chinese do to Vancouver in the housing market over there. It is insane. We are being taken advantage of by the birth tourism, especially a lot of the Chinese people are taking advantage of that. I'm not saying all Chinese people are bad. Of course not. I know tons of great, awesome, hilarious, great Chinese people. But China is our enemy. China is our enemy. Fuck Russia. Who the fuck gives a shit about Russia? Nobody cares about Russia. Who cares about Crimea? Who cares about Chechnya or whatever? Call out, all the Chinese and putting the Muslims in camps over there. There's like millions of them. So, just nobody's talking about that because China has them by the balls. And for China to come out and speak to Canada like that shows you, what position we have on the global stage. And should let Canadians know that this is not a country that we want to deal with, because they are just they're going to use force against us if we disagree. This is why China can never be the fucking superpower of the world. We need to stop that. If China becomes a superpower of the world, like, the world's going to look a lot fucking different. It's going to be a lot worse. But I don't think that's going to happen. I know there's a lot of projections for that to happen, but their economy, I think a lot of it is lying. They said they have like 6% growth, GDP growth for so many years. I'm pretty sure that's a lie. I've seen many other numbers to suggest it's closer to 1 to 2%. They're inflating their numbers. They're inflating this shit. They're building ghost cities that nobody is inhabiting, that are falling down after 3 fucking years. So, China is a paper tiger. It's a matter of time before they collapse. That's why it's not good to tie our economy with theirs, even though a bunch of corporations and businesses and stuff are going to get cheap deals in the here and now. It's not going to be good for the long run, especially for regular average Canadian citizens, because these globalists have tons of fucking money that they can just go live in different countries, in different places if their economy collapses in their country. When you have enough money, when you're a billionaire, when you have that much money, you literally don't need passports. You don't need any of this stuff. You can take your own private plane and you can fly into a different country and just practically live there. This is why these globalists, they don't care about what happens individual nations, because they can go, they're globalists. They live all over the world. They don't have a country. This is why Trudeau and a lot of our politicians are so willing to sell us out to hostile nations like China, because they have no allegiance. They don't think of themselves as Canadians. They're global citizens trying to rule over the peasants in society like us. But, once again, China, this is just more example of China's having us by the balls, and we need to make a stand against China. We need to boycott their products. We need to boycott Telus. If you have Telus, get rid of it right now, because they want to work with China. We need to take a stand against companies that are working with them. And then these companies will then start to at least buy maybe more Canadian products instead, and put that money back into our economy instead of putting it into the Chinese economy that is going to, once like I said, collapse probably one day. And they're a hostile nation that is just trying to steal all of our fucking information and data to then market it and sell us shit or do whatever they want with it. I don't know. But we can't trust them. A lot of their technology that they have, that they've gotten, is stolen technology as well. So we got to cut off China, and they are getting more and more scared, as it seems. They're going to be building up their military, and it seems like there's going to be some type of conflict with them in the coming years. So let's try not to make them more powerful than they already are in the meantime. But that's all I pretty much had to say about this. If you like my content, subscribe and have a good day. See ya.